Good evening, everyone. This is David Hajar, in for the vacationing Tom Cummings, who's enjoying himself in Denver, Colorado, along with Michaela Hurley. I just want you to know, she's not just the fabulous Michaela Hurley. She's tops in her class, but you have to tell she just got her driver's license. So, just be careful when you're on the road. You see it, you might want to move over. From the Dick Keefe studio at the beautiful Norwood High School. So, as this is the Tom Cummings Show, Washington and beyond. Our sponsor, J.C. Plumbing and Heating, Jacobs Plumbing and Heating, located at 1156 Washington Street, right here in Norwood, 781-762-1600. Joining us for the next hour or so are three good friends, Norwood Selectman Tom Maloney, former Planning Board member Debbie Homewood, and Finance Commissioner Alan Slater. So welcome all. This will be a good hour. Let's go right into the topics. I don't need to tell you what we're going to talk about. You all know what we're going to talk about, and so the audience will just have to keep up. Impeachment. It was a big subject the past few weeks. Obviously, you saw the Democrats try to do it in the Senate. It didn't go over very well. Since that time, the president's approval rating has skyrocketed to his highest point, 49%. Thoughts about the process that went from the Congress to the Senate to nowhere. So who wants to lead it off? Tom?
The result was a foregone conclusion, and it really was just an exercise in trying to embarrass a president, which point might be made about 20 years ago with President Clinton as well, I think, too. Which is the reason why I think it's tough. Impeachment can be tough because we have term limits. So the voters have a crack at this when the president is first elected, and they will get another crack at the president on re-election attempt, and then that'll be it no matter what. So in the case of Clinton, he was impeached with 2 years to go. In this case, they're trying to forestall or trying to prevent the president's re-election. His enemies in Congress are trying to prevent his re-election. They knew it wouldn't succeed, but they're hoping to besmirch him enough that they'll be able to defeat him. So.
Do you think what they have done is sort of now lowered the bar to future impeachments? Because, the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors usually stood for something a little bit higher than what he was accused of. What do you think?
I think I'm embarrassed to say I watched and listened to more of it than I probably should have. And every day I would get a different view on it. It was too much information for us to boil down, I think. Is it going to make it easier to do later on? Probably, but it was an exercise in futility, and I'm not sure why they went that way. Right. I think because I'm just somebody in Norwood, and I thought, well, this is never going to get through the Senate. Why are they doing this?
Can I? You know what? That's a good point. Alan, why isn't it? If you really wanted to take down the other party's president or really hurt, why don't you just censure the guy? Really, because there's nothing he can do about it. There's no trial. It's just they vote, and they could have said to him, because I think they had a legitimate case to make. Look, we appropriated this, whatever it was, $400 million to go to the Ukrainians, and you delayed it because you wanted the Ukrainian government to investigate a certain company, which might or might not be a good idea. But the company the company's board of directors included the son of one of your political rivals, and you never came to us to talk about that. The president is allowed to withhold funding for certain things if he has good reason, and he might have had good reason. But had they censured him, they could have said, it's not that what you did is illegal, but we don't agree with it. We appropriated that money. We wanted it to go to them, and you withheld it for reasons that appear to be very personal. And then there's nothing he could have done.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, Tom, is that he did release the money in accordance with the law. It had to be released by September 30th. It was released prior to that. There were several people who did recommend, some Democrats who really didn't feel that they wanted to go through the process because they knew what the end result was going to be, who did recommend or suggest to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer that they censure him. I think Senator Manchin from West Virginia was one of those who did that. Has it lowered the bar? You look at it, you look at the impeachments in modern times, and in the case of Richard Nixon, I think the facts were there. That was obvious. He resigned before he would fully be impeached. You could make an argument either way on Bill Clinton. I mean, the issue with Bill Clinton was not the sex issue, but the issue was whether he lied under oath. It's a matter how you feel the way. In this case, I don't agree with what the president did. I don't think it rises to the state of high crimes and misdemeanors. It's really a policy issue. What's going to happen the next time where there's a Democratic, where there's a Republican House and a Democratic president? The same thing going to happen? Who knows? But I think that I do agree with you. I think the bar has been lowered, and I don't think that's good for our political
I'm just concerned that when, the whole revenge factor seemed to have long memories up in Congress, and this time reversed will come up again, and people will remember and maybe do something stupid again. So you just, any of your feelings about Mitt Romney and the stance that he took on the Senate floor with regards to being, in the history of all impeachment, he was the first senator to go against his own party?
Yes, I think Democrat or Republican, you should get to vote the way you want to.
Right.
And that they turned on, I think the reason Mitt didn't get anywhere in a presidential election is he doesn't have a big spark. But I don't think most people would say he does things for strictly political reasons. I think he did it because that's what he believed. And I got to agree with him or not, I think he should be able to vote the way he wants regardless of what party you're in. If you're a Democrat and you want to vote with the Republicans, you should be allowed to do that, and vice versa. So he got lambasted, we're going to throw him out of some caucus. I don't agree with that. And one of the things I wanted to say about censure, I don't think most people understand censure, but they know what impeachment means. So that's a big, nasty mark.
Yeah.
Censure is a term that is a little more difficult to define.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of Mitt Romney, first of all, he only voted for impeachment in one of the two counts. He voted with the rest of the Republicans in the other one. I'm not convinced that he did it solely because of, he felt that was the right thing to do, or whether he just doesn't like Donald Trump. I mean, the animus between the two of them is well known, and here's his chance to get back at Donald Trump.
Okay.
I think he's that petty, huh?
Any
This is politics.
Yeah, well.
so the president gives his State of the State,
State of the Union.
State of the Union, sorry,
Yeah.
State of the Union address, and has some prominent individuals that he showcased. Obviously, proposed some things that will never come to fruition. Took some shots as well. I'm not sure any other president has been different. Some a little bit more conciliatory than Donald is, but I wouldn't expect anything different from President Trump. But reactions to Speaker Pelosi's tearing up on public television, the whole speech, and then
These two deserve each other. Really, they hate each other. They're quite public about it. He calls her. What
Shake
does he
her
call
hand.
Her?
He calls her all kinds of names. And this is politics. It looked in my opinion, it looked a little contrite. It looked a little,
Well,
Sunday schoolish, nasty.
But shouldn't we expect better from the leaders of our country? I mean, if Donald, okay, you're not going to shake my hand, I'm going to rip up your speech, sort of, a tit for tat. Okay, don't we come to expect more from the leader of Congress and the leader of the Senate and the leader of the free world?
As a student of history, I remember in 2010 when Barack Obama was president and he gave his State of the Union address, and he made certain statements in there, and the cameras took a shot of Justice Alito,
Right.
who didn't get up and demonstrate or walk out or yell out or anything like that, but you can see him silently mouth "not true," and he gets skewered, by certain publications. I mean, the Washington Post said that he should apologize to the president. And again, what did he do? What did he say? In this case, where the Speaker of the House makes a very demonstrable move to do what she did, and these same publications are like, right on, Nancy, you showed him. I think that's wrong. I think we have to be civil. It's all a matter of respect. Nancy Pelosi doesn't like Donald Trump. Fine. A lot of people don't. But that's why, following the State of the Union, you have the loyal opposition giving their presentation, their side of things. What she did was just unacceptable. It doesn't matter who the president is or who the Speaker of the House is. That was purely unacceptable.
Well, I don't, having watched these things, I don't like the fact that the Supreme Court justices are there anyway. I really would. The Constitution requires that the president give an annual report to Congress, or more frequently if he sees fit. It doesn't say anything about the Supreme Court. I just have never liked that. First of all, if you were a justice, you have to be totally impassive. You're right. You referred to the Alito thing, Alan, and he got skewered for it. The only reason he got skewered is because it was caught on camera. It's become a television event now. It was, really, for most of maybe not at this point, most of it, for a lot of the history, the president didn't even go there. He just sent it over.
Right. Do you think we should get rid of it? That was the big. Do you think it's just a political?
The media would never. They'd never go for it. This is sort of their midwinter thing. They don't have much else. They get the Super Bowl, and then they got this, and that's about all they got in February.
Well, they had impeachment. They got.
No, but I'm just saying, in the regular scheduling, the media wouldn't allow it. And I just get tired of it. And look, I'm a Roman Catholic. I stand up and sit down all the time at the rooms, but this is ridiculous. They stand up, they clap, they sit down, they clap, they stand up. Good grief! Just let them give the speech, will you?
It's all show, and I think it is a political speech, and I think David hit it on the head. He talked about some of the people in the gallery, because it's the kind of people who he's trying to attract to his campaign. He's looking at disaffected Democrats, people who feel that the party has failed them. I always remember the old Ronald Reagan quote, where Ronald Reagan started off as a Democrat. He turned into a Republican. He was asked, why did you change, and why did you move out of the Democratic Party? And he said, I haven't left the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has left me. And these are the kind of people who he's going to attract. And then he had a number of African Americans in the gallery. A member of Tuskegee Airmen, a student who couldn't get into the school that she wanted to because the Democratic establishment in her state wouldn't approve school choice. And he's trying to attract a larger percentage of African Americans, and Republicans typically do in an election. African Americans generally vote 90% Democrat. If he could even cut that to 80%, that's a big deal in some of these battleground states, and I think he may succeed in that.
So if he gets 80% of the African American vote, he'll win 40 states.
No, but
that's huge.
But
if he gets 20% of the
reduce it from 90% Democrat to 80%
even 20%.
Democrat.
But do you think these little human interest pieces work?
They don't hurt.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, they do. They must work because presidents keep doing them. Ronald Reagan was the first one to do it. And no, I got to admit, I'm an old cynic, and sometimes I sit there and say, oh, they look so nice. Isn't that wonderful? She hasn't seen her husband, and he comes down the stairs. All right, I admit, it does tug at your heartstrings.
Even yours?
Wow.
His kids miss,
I'll see
his
it
kids
when I
miss him
believe
too
it.
when he's gone for a weekend.
I know they do.
Yeah.
So let's move on. We've had 3 state caucuses / primaries so far. Some interesting results. We've had the Iowa caucus / blow up. We've had the New Hampshire primary, and just recently we had the Nevada caucus. We're coming up to a South Carolina primary next week, followed by Big Super Tuesday, which is going to give out a lot of delegates, mainly from California and Texas, I believe, the 2 big ones. We're going to know a lot after that weekend what's really going on, but Bloomberg, well, he's been on stage, has not been on the ballot in any of these, and will not be until Super Tuesday, so he's got to live through one more primary before he can try to catch up. So thoughts on what we've seen so far, Debbie?
I know that they're bashing, the caucus process, the primary process. I don't think anybody really knows their politicians. Small town politics is different, but I think it's important for these people to go out and press the flesh, and go to. I think it's really important for them to do this. And Iowa, I'm not a techie. You can't hack a pencil. I'd go with a piece of paper and a pencil. I'm not a techie. I'm a dinosaur.
Did you
I'm
come up
proud
with
of
that?
it.
You can't hack a pencil.
No, somebody uses it on TV, so I'm stealing it. I'll give them a quarter when I figure out rules.
I like that.
Yeah, but I don't like this guy. None of us have had these people in our kitchen. I think it's important. And to say, well, Iowa's not diverse enough. It's diverse enough for Iowa. You got to get past the mass fight people.
Any of the candidates who said, well, we're down to where there's more diversity, but once you get beyond New Hampshire and Iowa, I thought that was sort of degrading to the residents of those particular states. No one's out putting signs up saying, don't come into our state, we don't want the diversity.
That's because that candidate didn't win.
Right,
That's all it comes down to.
And to me, then, are they pandering to the minorities because there's more of them in South Carolina than there are in New Hampshire? I don't like when they again pitting one state against another state and then saying we're more of a diverse. But interested in again, Bernie seems to be off with a rocket right now.
Yeah.
Almost got 50% of the Nevada vote. Is tops in California. I mean, when that one comes up, I think he's going to be a clear winner in California. The question is going to be, is there going to be anyone that's going to be able to stop him? South Carolina is the next one. What are you thinking, Alan?
Well, I think, Joe Biden is still the favorite in South Carolina, but Bernie is starting to make up a lot of ground, and he's number 2. It's going to be, admittedly, you talk about the caucus process in New Hampshire. Those are small states, but Bernie has an unbelievable amount of momentum right now. He's going to be difficult to stop. And I mean, boy, was I ever wrong about this one. I thought that it was going to be Joe Biden because of his electability. But Bernie seems to have the momentum. He has the ground troops. The Democratic establishment, must be going bonkers right now because they're very concerned about Bernie Sanders at the top of the ticket, because having an avowed socialist at the top of the ticket, which is certainly a turnoff for a number of Americans, they feel that may hurt them down the road with the House and Senate candidates and even in some of the state races. On the other hand, if they try to pull some kind of parliamentary procedure at the convention to deny Bernie Sanders the nomination, if he in fact has the majority of the delegates, then many of Bernie's people will simply sit out the election. Not all of them, but a higher percentage, a good percentage, such that it'll hurt whoever the Democratic nominee is, and likely guarantee the re-election of Donald Trump.
Are the Democrats themselves to blame for having themselves in this situation? They went through this in 2016 on whether Bernie was actually a Democrat. He's been an independent, for a long, long, long time. He switched just before the primary season started to become a Democrat because he wanted to be in it. And then when it was all said and done, he switched back to being an independent. And they could have changed the rules. They could have said, hey, listen, you're either a Democrat, this is a Democrat primary. Independents are welcome to run on their own. Join your own group, make your own independent, primary process. But these are for Democrats. They've allowed him to enter the fray again. And like you said, if they try to do something at the convention, it could be problematic. But isn't it a problem that they've self-created partially by allowing him to participate in a Democratic process when he's not a Democrat?
Well, what are you going to do? Tell him he can't run as a Democrat? If he registers as a Democrat and he's got enough supporters, I mean,
But you can tell isn't he playing the game because he only switches at the last minute.
But
So-
do we have any control over that?
Well, you would if you got rid of the open primary system, but we seem to like it. So if you're, and you really have all the advantages if you're not enrolled in a party. You can walk into the ballot. In Massachusetts, you can. I mean, I think it's the same in a lot of states. You walk into the polling place on that day and decide which party's ballot you want to take. You take it, you go in and vote. And so for that reason, loyalty to party and the rewards of party membership have been reduced. And really, it's everyone's a free agent out there. So, I mean, Bernie Sanders is sort of the culmination of maybe 5 decades of that trend. So he's not a Democrat, but he's approaching the Democratic nomination.
Well, he's also not a populist, because populist means they're outside of the political system, does it not? And Bernie has been in the political, he's been on the dole, you know, he's been a state employee,
Yeah.
whether he was was he a
Right.
governor? What was he,
Mayor.
governor?
He was a
Mayor.
mayor, I think, in
Burlington.
Burlington.
Yeah, he was a mayor. He's been in, you know, in Washington for 40 years. He's
Yeah.
not a populist. He's one of the old, you know. I'm fascinated that the young generation is fascinated with Bernie, but I don't think you can't tell him he can't be in the Democratic Party. Can't you just step up and say, "This is what I've decided to do"? The party can say, "We don't want you."
Yeah.
That
Well,
doesn't.
I think that'd be difficult, and I have to admit, even though philosophically I disagree with almost everything he stands for, I do have to admit that I do respect Bernie in the sense that you know what he is. You know, he's never made any bones about what he is.
Yep.
You see a lot of these candidates these days who are running away from their past. You know, whether it's Kamala Harris, who tried to run away from her past as a prosecutor, from Michael Bloomberg, who's trying to run away from stop and frisk, you know, which was very successful and was part of his campaign when he was running for mayor of New York. Bernie, whether you like him or not, Bernie is what he is. You know what you get with Bernie.
Exactly, and he is what he is, and I always say, so is Donald Trump. He is what he is. I would rather know that the snake is in the grass. I'd rather he had his head up, so I know not to step there, than the ones that are in the grass and I can't see their heads. I don't particularly like
This is
snakes.
another one of your
Another one of my
backwards
analogies, which Tom
expressions.
absolutely loves.
Well,
I'm a cross stick to a baseball game.
it will be interesting to see any feelings on Mike Bloomberg, and I know he did not do very well at all at the last debate.
It astonished me how bad that was. In fact, it was so bad, I keep thinking, was there anything redeeming about it? And I suppose that the fact that he called Bernie Sanders ridiculous was good. You know, I mean, I'm just trying to think, what does he get out of it? Because, and I was just astonished that he wasn't ready for these personal questions. I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, somebody said it yesterday on TV, wherever I saw it, Michael Bloomberg should go look at Donald Trump's debates in 2016, because he took the same kind of heat from Megyn Kelly and all those folks, and he just hit back. And Bloomberg just stood and looked into the camera, and, you know. It's just
But where is Citizens United is what I would like to know. And I'm not as well read on as at Citizens United as I'd like to be. I've got to look into it more. But why aren't they screaming and hollering over this? We're buying onto the stage.
Oh, they are. I mean, you know, a lot of people have screamed and hollered about Michael Bloomberg.
Well, other than
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, by the way, is now taking money from a super PAC because she said, look, everybody else is doing it.
Right.
I need to do it, which again, you know, well, Elizabeth
So
has
if
been
everyone else is
hypocritical.
torturing animals, you're going to torture animals
Oh,
too. You know?
Well,
analogy.
absolutely. I mean, another thing about Elizabeth, you know, I mean, you know, take what she says with a grain of salt. Yeah, but that's just the way politics is these days, you know. And
You know,
you can agree or disagree, but you know, money talks in politics.
Can I just say something too about our senator on that? She's had a couple of moments where she's gotten a little churlish with her opponents, which we kind of like to see. It makes for more drama, but
Yeah.
the angry ones get hurt by it. You know, sort of collateral damage or whatever. So she had a little set to with Bernie Sanders about some comment he might have made to her about women can't get elected. That was before the holidays. He's done fine. Her polling numbers went down. She went after Bloomberg the other night on the personal statements he supposedly made about women. He'll take a big hit for it. I think he has, but it's not going to help her. The angry ones. It's almost like you might as well just give yourself up, like falling on the grenade or something, you know, because it's not. You're not going to benefit by doing it.
But the way she went after Bloomberg was just the facts, ma'am. I don't think she came off churlish. She was churlish over what Bernie said about, you know, she took it out of context. You couldn't take what Bloomberg was saying out of context, and she hammered him. Now, I'm not advocating for Elizabeth, but I don't think she came off churlish when she was hammering
we'll
him.
see
She
how-
just
We'll see.
hammered
I
him.
mean, I've never liked the politics of personal attack. Unfortunately, that's just the way politics is these days.
Yeah, don't get in if you don't want to get dirty.
Right.
But,
I
but
get
she
it.
did not do well in Nevada. You know,
No.
I mean, the first
She did
event
not.
after that dust up, after that the fight with Bloomberg, she didn't do well.
And what was interesting about the Nevada results was, remember the dust up the week before about the unions not being happy.
The culinary union.
The
in
culinary
particular.
union with Bernie taking away, or his proposal to take everybody's health insurance away. They have a Cadillac one because they're covered by a union plan, and it would be taken away to go into this monster government program. He did fine.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
did
yeah?
fine.
Oh,
And
yeah,
he won, I think, 7 out of the 8 districts where the culinary union
Yeah.
had more people voting than anybody else.
Yeah, one thing about Elizabeth and why she didn't do as well as she thought in Nevada, because she expected, a big uptick, after her performance in the debate. She did get a lot of money, but unfortunately for her, Nevada is an early voting state. So there are a number of votes already in prior to the debate. And she wasn't able, in her mind, she wasn't able to benefit from that. I'm not sure in the end how much she really would have benefited, but be that as it may.
Well, I'm certain that Donald Trump's group is very happy that they're all screaming and yelling at each other rather than about him, even though a couple of them said we're focusing on the wrong person. But, they're fighting for their lives to be the top dog or number 2 so that they can have an influence in the process along the way and at the convention. But they're just really ratcheting up against each other. It'll be interesting to see how this debate turns out, this one this week with Bloomberg, to see if he sort of recalculates himself with regards to the issues, and if they're going to go after him this time or if they're going to go after Bernie, who is their number 1 right now. So
No, you're right. He's the one that you always got to take down the one at the top. This cycle is a little is unusual. It's interesting because of the entry of 2 billionaires. Steyer has been on the ballot. He was on the ballot in New Hampshire. But Bloomberg, who's spending all kinds of money, hasn't been on a ballot at all. So it's really kind of interesting. Usually by this point you're starting to see some serious attrition. But you don't. You still have whatever it is, eight
people,
candidates who are vying. And so Super Tuesday decides pretty, whittles it down to 4, I think.
What do you think we're going to have what kind of turnout are we going to have in Massachusetts for Super Tuesday? Let's give a guess and see how it comes out next.
25.
I mean, probably average.
Which
You
is?
know, we have a U.S. senator on the ballot, so
it's going to be higher, right?
But I'm not sure what I don't know what the average numbers are for primaries of this
I don't
kind. It's 55 in a general state election. 55% is good in a general state election. I don't know what it would be in a March presidential primary.
I don't think it's, the 25 to me is going to be optimistic.
All right.
I will say one thing about the primary process for the Democrats. It's really been, for lack of a better term, a circular firing squad.
Yeah. Well, you
Which
could
will
see
hurt
the
the
I
two.
do like that
Who were the
expression.
two in the last debate? The two, Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Senator Klobuchar at the end, and they get into it a little bit, which is kind of odd because they're both kind of like a 4th and 5th, but
But he had the most delegates going into the
I know
debate.
you're right. You're right. I was thinking going in Nevada. He finished 3rd, I guess. So he was
Yeah,
on
I mean,
the
I-
rise.
And
A calming influence.
So
Right,
I guess
he-
she's trying to.
Yeah.
They're fighting for the same so-called moderate
Yeah,
lead. I
and
guess.
Mayor Pete has complained that there are irregularities in the Nevada caucus, so he wants some recounts done there also. I guess seems to be irregularities in every caucus.
Yeah.
Well, as they get to these larger states, who's going to have the money to put out all these ads, have all these people canvassing households to see what's going on? And that's tough for people like Buttigieg or Amy Klobuchar that
Don't have
are
the
hanging
money.
in there, but they don't have the funds
Yeah.
needed to get to a big state like Texas and California. So it will be interesting.
Yeah.
Any topic you want to bring up, Alan?
Maybe talk a little sports a little bit later, but
Okay.
nothing right now.
Okay, so let's go right into sports because interesting times in Boston. A lot of people not happy, at least from what I've heard about the Red Sox, not just because of what has happened in their potential involvement with it, but just the way it's being dealt with overall across the league, silencing people from talking about it, not punishing everybody, just a certain group of individuals, and then just not the openness, at least on the Red Sox side, about what they're saying and really what they're not saying about what's going on. An interim manager that they don't want to call manager because they don't even know if he's going to be brought up in the final report by the commissioner's office. So not a good time for Red Sox fans. If you're Bruins and Celtics fans, you're up there. The Bruins are doing great, best team in the league. Made a couple of small trades today, look good.
Oh, they did?
Yep, the Celtics doing very well, as well. So maybe we have a good winter, spring coming along, but I don't see too many people clamoring to get Red Sox tickets. But thoughts, anybody on the comparisons?
Not me. Baseball's like watching the grass grow for me.
You're like my
I'll come
wife.
and watch the Mustangs, but I wish they'd give sports a little less time on the news and give me a little more
They have their
politics and
own-
world news.
No, they got all their. They have the NFL channel. You got the ESPN.
Right. So why do I have to have it on my evening news?
ESPN two.
Go ahead, boys. Have at it.
No.
Have at it. Talk about the Red Sox.
It's not a
I'm going to
good,
make a lot of enemies here. They're
Yeah.
overpaid and over mic'd or whatever.
not a
Go
good, not a good time to be a Red Sox fan. They traded their best player, and the excuses they used were almost
Happy monkey.
laughable when they did that. They may be punished, for their own sign stealing scheme. We'll see about that. Baseball took a big hit. Probably hasn't had a bigger hit like this since the Black Sox scandal of 1919. Because if you can't trust what you see, it turns fans off. You spend your money, you want to be entertained, you feel that everything is on the up and up, and if it's not, and it may not have made any difference to the Astros, they were clearly the best team in baseball that year, but I would be disheartened if I was a baseball fan. I really would be. And I think
Especially if you're a Dodger.
oh
You
God,
lose to the two teams that are
I know
right now being implicated, although other teams are now.
Oh, I know.
I mean, the Yankees, Judge has now come out and made a statement, and someone else is purportedly going to be coming out and making a statement about what went on at the Yankees. I mean, this thing could blow
Right.
up. That's why. And what is also really sad is that the commissioner's office knew 3 years ago they were given a heads up that something was going on. They just couldn't figure it out. And obviously they had to wait for someone to blow the whistle on them. Of course, they waited till they got their ring and their paycheck, and then when they
Right.
moved on, they were unhappy, so they blew the whistle.
Who actually
But,
blew the whistle? By the way? How did this?
the guy from
Whistleblower.
Who started it?
It was a pitcher named Mike Fears. I think he's
Yes.
with the.
How do you know that?
Because I read it.
Okay, great. It's with-
I don't know. I don't know what's happening in
it's in
Washington, but I know what's
California.
happening
I think
with
he's
the
in
Red
California
Sox.
now with one of the.
I think he's with the Angels, and
Yeah.
he, a year, 2 years after it happens, when he's no longer with the Astros.
Sour grapes?
Nah, I don't know if it's sour grapes. It's like, hey, what do I have to lose? And I know that people love whistleblowers, but to me, if he did that when he was a member of the Astros, I'd have a lot more respect for him than he did, and than he does it 2 years later after he gets his ring and he gets his money. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel.
That's a good segue for me because I'm disheartened by their out of uniform behavior. I'm not all that concerned about, you shouldn't be cheating. No, it's the other stuff that they do that really has turned. I'm a sports fan. I baseball not so much, but the behavior is not acceptable. Or don't put them on camera, or don't make them role models. I think your father and uncle should be your role models, not somebody that can kick, throw, pitch. Go enjoy the game, have a beer. It's great.
Right.
I think they get too much news time.
Probably.
This is like the steroids thing 25 years ago, though. It's really gives somebody, it's a big advantage. If you know what the pitch is, if you know it, it's batting practice.
Right.
Anyway.
It's not good. I do think I agree with Alan that this harken back to the Black Sox scandal. I think that this is going to play out throughout the year, I believe, and that more is going to come out. And the harder they try to control it, the worse it's going to be, because it looks like they're just trying to silence everybody and then punish you if you try to dare talk about it. It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's just going to really push the media to try to find out more because it's like they're being told, you're not going to find out from me what's going to happen.
Do you think all the teams were doing it, or just the two that got caught?
I think there's more than the two teams that
Yeah.
get caught. They may have had different ways of doing it, which weren't as obvious, but I think that a number of teams have done it. Then the other thing that disheartens me is that there's no real punishment to the players, because in order to get testimony, the commissioner essentially gave them immunity.
Right.
And I think a lot of people felt that if the players themselves were punished, then I think they, that the whole incident, would be viewed a little bit differently. But since the players aren't punished, it's like, what have they lost?
want
They've
them to
lost
win,
nothing.
right.
Maybe a little self-respect, but nothing else.
Well, remember, David, they're in the entertainment business
That's right.
ultimately.
That's
So
right.
if the fans want
Yep.
to take it out on the players, let them take
They
it
will,
out on them.
and they will, right.
You got to put somebody out there to hit the ball.
So the virus coming out of China, coronavirus, seems to be spreading more and more. I know it's pretty limited in the United States. We seem to have better controls of what's coming in and how people are being put aside for their 14 days before they can actually mingle amongst the population. But reports out of the past couple days of what's going on in Iran, what's going on in Italy, the spreading of it doesn't look good. Stock market took a huge dump today, all on fears of the coronavirus. Comments about we think the United States is handling it the right way and the rest of the world isn't, or do you think that there needs to be better cooperation? Certainly China's being accused of not allowing outsiders in to try to help the situation, which is a problem. The fact that they're not telling the truth about the numbers is a problem.
The first day, they said they had 8 cases, and they're building 3 hospitals that they're going to build. I mean, I might have the numbers wrong. 3 hospitals I don't have wrong. 8 cases? It goes from 8 to 300 in a day. I mean,
Right.
China's not telling the truth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they stonewalled early. I mean, I think people realize that now, and it's come back to haunt people because it has like a 2-week incubation time, I believe. So
Right.
you just don't know. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's almost impossible to keep under control. You can try to reduce the number of people who come in with coronavirus, but the fact is it is very contagious. And we may do a better job than other people, but we're not going to be immune from it.
No, I don't know what the answer is to it either.
Well,
What do
you mentioned the authoritarian regimes will always stonewall you. I mean, that's what they do. That's why they're authoritarian. So that's sort of. I don't know how much of a difference it would make or would have made, because as Alan says, you don't know yet. It has a longer, whatever you call, lead time.
Incubation time, yeah.
Incubation
I
time.
believe,
So
yeah.
than a lot of illnesses. But is it primarily, by the way, people of East Asian descent who are contracting this? I mean, I know it's shown up in Italy and Iran. Is it showing up among Italians and Iranians?
No, not well. It's started to, and I think that's because of the exposure to folks coming out of China.
Okay.
Right, they just canceled
before they
Mardi Gras
started
and-
really
Yeah.
saying you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation. Same like the 2 ships where people were being held, and every time someone got it, the 2-week period started all over again. So
Yeah.
you thought you
Yeah.
might have been free for 10 days, and someone gets it. Guess what? Your 2-week period starts all over again.
Yeah.
So that just makes people pretty frustrated if you're feeling pretty good on the ship and you haven't got it, and here you are 3 weeks later, and the clock has to start all over again because the guy 1 floor up got it. They're just not letting anybody off these ships, although they did transport a bunch off the ship off of Japan over to 3 bases in America. But look at South Korea, high exposure now on the numbers.
Yes, but
it's not
it
it's a
started in
democracy over there, and they're pretty. You'll never know anything out of North Korea, so we'll just leave that alone. They wouldn't tell you if half their people were dying.
I was
So-
just reading an article today that people are avoiding Chinatown in Boston, which has really hurt the merchants there. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's just the reality.
Yeah, I mean, that they don't, I mean, it is a communist country. The way they decide that you're going to go in quarantine is they solder your door shut. Did you see that one? Or they drag you, I mean, communism, socialism doesn't seem to work,
Well, the
does
same
it?
thing was done in Italy in the Great Plague of the 14th century. So you can see how we've progressed.
Oh, you took that away from me. And we haven't progressed from there?
History is a wheel. You just go back and forth between what you do.
That's why we call those events revolutions. That's where it comes from.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, I love when he comes up with those. Those are good ones.
He's a good man.
A revolution, I like it.
The Supreme Court, you have, Ginsburg, who probably speaks publicly more often than the other Supreme Court justices, but you had Sotomayor come out yesterday with her concerns about the way the Supreme Court seems to be dealing with some of these issues brought to the court by Trump. You've had Clarence Thomas open up through his own storytelling, I believe on Fox Nation, over how the whole Anita Hill thing and his feelings about some of that. Any sense that there are probably more Supreme Court justices talking out loud than you used to? I mean, they used to be like, who are these people? And, you didn't lose any respect for them, but they were this really, high up there, and they were there for that reason. They never got involved in the politics. They let their talking and voting and dissents talk for themselves. That's what they did it. But you seem to have more outside of that world today saying, well, this is what I think.
Well, you're just acknowledging what's been true since the founding of the Republic. The Supreme Court is just another mini legislature. It really was. It's really what it is. It's not a matter of your research leading you to a conclusion. You draw the conclusion and backfill the research to make it work. So that's why you talk about conservative justices and liberal justices and moderate justices, because they all come in with viewpoints and political views. And these days they're all pretty well known. Ever since, really, I mean, that's ever since the Judge Bork thing. That's what he had a paper trail. It's almost impossible not to have one now, Right. So their views are well known.
But if they come out in public and they become celebrity, for lack of a better word, I think that only hurts the court. I kind of like it better when they're quiet and they let their decisions speak for them. And now there's a big push on, we should have more justices. When did we have 13? Was that during?
Well, FDR
FDR's?
tried to pack the court in the 30s, and that was ultimately defeated.
But do you think we should have more? And then there's a big push on that they should have term limits, which
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, the people who think you should have more justices are those whose political philosophy is different than the makeup of the present court. So let's say today, or the next election, you increase it to 15. Well, that's fine. Then the next election, when a different president and a different party is nominated, you make it 23, and it just goes on forever. I mean, justices have always spoken publicly, but usually, it's at, you'll be speaking at a college, or you be speaking before, a legal group or something like that. But, actually going to the print media and the televised media is something brand new for justices, and I agree with Debbie. I think that's wrong.
And I do think that as they progress through age, we maybe get a little wiser as we get a little older, and we change who, we believe this in our 30s, and then we maybe learn something in our 40s, and to have them have term limits, I think they're a different item. Yes, they're a legislative branch, but they're a different item, and those guys that wrote this, I think, were wise in their picking. I think they should just be quiet, sit there and not clap, have on their little black robes, but I don't think they should be out spewing their beliefs, because their beliefs might be different in 10 years.
But they are seen, though, as they are the top justices in the country. They do serve a value. If you're being invited to give an address at a prominent law school or something, I mean, I do think that does serve a purpose for them. I don't object to it. I think, by the way, I don't want to make it required viewing, but everyone should watch C-SPAN. C-SPAN has 3, channels or outlets on your cable, and because you watch a C-SPAN now, then you watch C-SPAN, and you'll see a lot of these folks are really human beings. That they're really, a lot of them are. You watch a Justice so and so addressing or in an interview or addressing a law school or something, and you realize a lot of them are actually pretty decent people, and they just maybe they disagree with me or you or I with them and so forth. But you at least get them to explain their rationale. The Supreme Court issues a decision. We never really. Do you ever read them? I don't read the decisions. I don't know. You know, I just want the headline on it. But C-SPAN humanizes a lot of these folks who are in the leadership of the country. I think it's a great thing.
That's a good point.
Did you ever see the RGB, the movie? Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
I have not, no.
It was a great movie. She's a very interesting woman. She's done a lot, and her views have changed, not 360, but you know where she was when she was in. She's been consistent in, you know, the women's rights and that kind. But she hasn't been militant about it. She hasn't been. It was a very interesting. It was kind of a documentary, but it wasn't. It was a really interesting movie that. But I do like them to just be a little more behind the scenes and not. I agree with college things, go out and have speeches, go on C-SPAN, but this doing TV interviews. I mean, if I see him on Oprah, I'm going to cry.
Yeah, and you know,
All right, Oprah's gone. You know,
yeah, right. I mean, it's okay, you know, to be a liberal or to be a conservative justice. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you like to see some diversity on the, you know, philosophical diversity on the court because you get a better debate, and ultimately you're going to get a better product out of it.
Can I
have no
segue on
problem.
that? One of the things with the topic that you could bring anything up. I do find that the people that disagree with my views are more interesting to have a discussion with. I learn more from them. If we could just do it, we can disagree without being disagreeable. I love quoting Nancy.
Yeah.
However, that's the whole, you know, we can't just talk to people that agree with us.
Right.
We have to talk to people that disagree. And I would just like to, you know, we get what we have. They're impeaching Trump. You know, Pelosi's ripping up the. Just because they're misbehaving, I don't think we have to.
I think everyone's entitled to their view, and I agree with you. It's certainly very interesting to have a discussion with someone that is probably contrary to what you're thinking. But I do think we've lost some civility with regards. Well, I'm trying to be nice. With regards to how we engage in those conversations, because just because you disagree with me doesn't make you any more right than my position. I think we can find a lot of common ground by talking it out and seeing where we're coming from. But at the end of the day, we just might disagree. I don't think people have to attack others for their stance or their beliefs. I think we have seen that, not to a large extent, but it does get there, and it's too bad. But I think we all have to be reminded that, hey, we're talking about, for the most part, where we sit, all local politics. We're all neighbors, and we all want what's best for the town of Norwood. And you like to think that even legislatures are thinking the same way. It's, you know,
during the 1996 campaign, where Bob Dole ran as the Republican candidate against Bill Clinton, and got a little nasty at some point. But Bob Dole said about Bill Clinton, he's my opponent. He's not my enemy.
right.
And that's what people don't realize these days. I mean, these politics of personal attack, nobody talks issues anymore. It's always what you did 20 years ago. And it's unfortunate. I mean, Debbie mentions about, dealing with people. And some of the times I always enjoyed the most was when I was in college, and I'd be, talking, to go to a party, and you'd be talking with somebody who was different political views, and you'd get into it, but afterwards you'd sort of laugh and, open up a beer for each other. And, those, to me, is the way politics should be. It's okay to have a differing opinion, and you're not a bad person because you do.
Nope.
And I do think that is the biggest problem. We can't ever learn anything. There was something on the internet that said if you Mike Bloomberg's a racist and a misogynist, and if you agree with him, you're just as bad as he is. And this is on my Facebook feed, and I'm thinking, I know these people that are saying, that's not political discourse. That's just dropping a grenade. And if you want to have I love political discourse. I think it's good and fun and healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we both have to, I've got my opinion, you've got yours, let's discuss it. But this, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're a misogynist, you're a racist, that's not discussion, that's dropping bombs, and then the discussion's over. And then there's no discussion.
That's right.
So, said my piece.
Okay,
I'm beating
so
it to death.
34 states have reduced prison populations, and at the same time, their crime rate has been dropping. Massachusetts is amongst the leaders with a 40% reduction since they started reducing prison populations by letting out early the lower crime folks, like drug dealing if it's below a certain amount. Thoughts to the wave that seems to be across the country now. Not talking about necessarily bail reform in New York; they've got their own issues, but in general, a lot of states have sort of revolted against at the time, Bill Clinton crime bill, where people are now saying, well, maybe we were a bit too harsh and throwing so many people in prison for longer periods of time for things that you would say today is like, okay, was that really necessary? So you've seen significant reductions around the entire country with no significant or even big bumps in the crime rate. Thoughts?
Well, let's see if that holds. I mean, we'll see. It certainly would be a good thing if it did, but the crime and punishment movement of the mid-'80s came about as a result of the feeling that crime was out of control, especially in the big cities. And then as the 80s passed into the 90s, we started incarcerating everybody for everything. And as the 80s passed into the 90s, the most popular, the worst city in the world at one time, I don't think this personally, I'm just saying, it was New York City. I mean, you'd never go there, it's all crime. Remember the movie like The Warriors, for example?
Yes.
Okay, but 15 years later, you're watching Seinfeld, and everybody wants to go to New York. It's the most fun place in the world, and that's because they cleaned it up. The city got, they get criminals off the street. That's what you do. And now it's kind of going the other way. We say, okay, maybe we have overdone it, particularly small crimes, possession of narcotics and so forth. And we'll see if it works out. I wonder if you're just setting yourself up for another crime and punishment
Is it going to go
push in 20 years.
For another pendulum swing.
Right.
I think I think it's okay, when you're letting people out who seem to have served their time and been a problem in prison. That's okay. But what I worry about is some of this new wave of prosecutors seem to be coming out and ignore certain provisions of the law. Whether it's drug dealing, whether it's being a public nuisance, whether it's trespassing, I think in some cases shoplifting. They'll ignore these things and they won't prosecute. If you're a cop and you bring this to the prosecutor, it's like, sorry, release that person. I think that's unfortunate. I think that one of the things about stop and frisk was that, you tended to look at people, and when people know that the cops are there, they're out there looking for you, they tend to be a little bit more careful in what they do, and they're not as likely to commit crimes. And if you can get away with things these days, I think that that's bad, and I think it could be reflective of an increased crime rate and more serious crimes at a later date.
Do you think, too, some of the personal property crimes, theft and pickpocketing and stuff like that, you don't need to do that anymore. You can just steal their money online.
Yeah, that's true. Any belief that sanctuary cities could reverse this potential trend? Like Tom says, let's see and wait. So you have short-term results. Let's see what the 5 and 10-year results look like, and then come back and talk to me. But do you think sanctuary cities are actually going to play into the consistent slowdown, or is it going to raise it back up again?
I was in San Francisco a few months ago. I had never been to San Francisco, and I don't think it's a secret that I like to look at old buildings, and I like to look at trees, and I like things to look nice and see. I thought San Francisco, I would never go back. I was so disappointed. Wow. It was dirty. It was. So I think maybe the sanctuary city people might be shooting themselves in the foot, because if you're going to take in people that don't have homes, then all of us need to step up and give them homes. We can't ask the government to do that or leave them on the street. So if you want to be a sanctuary city, have everybody sign up. You take one, I'll take one, you take one, and we sponsor them, but this is just nuts. You can't let people sleep on the street, because if we can't walk around and we get mugged or we get our windshield broken, those are the little things that are important. I mean, you might not like Giuliani now, but you loved him back then, because I love New York. I go to New York all the time.
Well, yeah, one of the things that they have back in New York is what they refer to as the squeegee men.
Right, and they got rid of them.
Who would go and, traffic is stopped, they'd go and they'd sort of wipe your windshield down, and they'd expect some kind of, tip to do that. And if you told them to get lost, then
they'd whack your windshield.
They'd whack your windshield. Those were gone. Now they're back again, and they say that, hey, what happened? So a cop arrests me, big deal. I'll be out, in an hour, and I'll be doing the same thing again.
Well, it's not attractive to say, I want these crimes punished. Maybe we could do something other than the squeegee guy hitting you or stealing your purse. Now, those of you that have never had your purse stolen,
right.
I think that's a capital offense.
Right.
But if you aren't comfortable being able to go into your city, to go visit a city, it's a big deal.
There are always alternatives to incarceration, but to simply say, sorry, I'm not going to prosecute that crime, that's the worst thing you can do, because it just perpetuates, and the more and more you get away with, and the more serious things you're going to try.
Right, they could clean up parks, they could pick up trash.
I think the sanctuary city and sanctuary state ideas are crazy. I just can't see it. It has to be a federal thing. Immigration has to be a federal thing. However you want to do it, we can discuss that. How lenient you want to be, what rules you want, how much vetting you do, and all that. It's got to be a federal matter. I believe in states' rights as much as possible, but this is a federal matter, controlling the federal borders. You can't undermine the federal government by saying, if you get in, come to our city, you'll be all set. You can't do that.
But you are undermining the federal government if you say, I'm not listening to the federal government, you can come in to my city.
Right, that's why I say it's wrong.
Well, then the
Okay.
federal government should take some action so there are consequences to these cities and states.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it, the only way to solve it.
Yep.
Well, I think
I agree.
if Donald Trump happens to win the election, I think you're going to see a bigger push against the sanctuary cities, because he'll feel emboldened. He'll have 4 years to get it done, and he knows there's nothing that they can really do to him because it's his last term. I just don't think but he has taken other steps. He won a big Supreme Court decision about the stay across the country, about immigrants taking public assistance, and trying to get
Illegal
it the same,
immigrants.
right?
Illegal immigrants,
Illegal
yeah.
immigrants, and that he can stop them. I mean, that was a huge one.
That's
I
really
think
all
that-
it is, David. Too. It's not. This has gotten way polarizing and
Yeah.
polarized. I can't. It's just look. Do you agree with the idea that a sovereign nation, should control its borders, should know who as best it can know who's coming into the
Right.
country? That's all the question. Every other country says yes. I don't know. We seem to be vacillating. We seem to be uncertain about it. But
Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for taking time and giving our many viewers great information on what's going on in Washington and beyond. You guys were absolutely great panel. Michaela Hurley and I want to thank our guests. Remember I told you about Michaela and her driver's license, so just make sure you get a good picture of her before you go.
I think she's going to be just fine.
Don Maloney, Alan Slater, and Debbie Holman, our sponsor, JC Plumbing and Heating, 1156 Washington Street, 781-762-1600. Tom Cummings, like I said earlier, is visiting in Colorado with his family. His next show is Wednesday, March 4th, live at 5 o'clock. He will be holding a Board of Selectmen candidates debate on Wednesday, April 1st at 5 p.m. In this very studio. It's a time change, so it's 5 p.m. Wednesday, April 1st at 5 p.m. So I believe it was at 6. It's been moved to 5 to allow more time for the candidates. So I'm sure Tom will mention it again and again, but just he wanted me to start it tonight, make sure everyone knew 5 o'clock, April 1st, Wednesday. And with that, thank you for watching. Have a great night, everybody.